We come to the penultimate video in this weird look into the adaptations of Junji Ito, and I don't think there's a better movie that I could have ended with. Oh, so long ago, I presented the idea that adaptation is good, and movies don't need to necessarily be accurate to the source material in order to be good. That being said, I can and do appreciate when faithful adaptations are made, and can recognize that sometimes changing from the source material was the wrong move. Just off the top of my head, I can list a few, like the ending to the anime adaptation of We Never Learn, or the ending to the anime adaptation of Nisekoi, or the ending to the anime adaptation of Air Gear, or the ending of the anime adaptation to The World God Only Knows. The point is, sometimes you can try to add something to a story and find yourself complicating a very solid plot, and I kind of feel like that's what happened here. The Long Dream is a wonderful short story by Junji Ito, and The Long Dream seems to have been a made-for-TV adaptation of the story that remains pretty faithful to the original story up to a point. So faithful, in fact, that I'm not even going to review them as two separate entities. Instead, I'm going to go over the events of both stories until it becomes impossible for me to do so. The film starts with an unusual series of small vignettes featuring an unknown woman over the opening credits, before we watch a hospital security camera that's observing a patient's room. This joins where the manga begins with Takashima, a patient who seems to have a severe fear of death, which seems justified when she claims that the very specter of death has come to visit her. The doctors tell her that it was a patient, but she denies that could even have been human with the way it appeared. Here we join two doctors as they discuss the other patient, Tetsuro Mukura, who's being overseen by Dr. Kuroda, who then recounts the tale of admitting this other patient. Mukura came in with a story of horrifying dreams that seemed to last an increasingly long amount of time, starting with just a day or two, but increasing in length to entire years, and this has been destroying his ability to remember events in real time, and his ability to distinguish reality and another dream. Kind of like a much darker version of Inception. Kuroda doesn't buy into it, but agrees to observe him anyway, and finds that during his observation he does seem to suffer some kind of disorder in his dreams. Mukuro denies the harmlessness of these dreams by recounting some of his nightmares: a soldier behind enemy lines for several years, a student cramming endlessly for exams that never end, needing to find a bathroom for 8 years and never being able to find one. He begins to fear what will happen if he ever has to experience centuries, or even a never-ending version of this hell. He does also seem to retain the lessons and experiences from these dreams, as he speaks in different intonations and speeches when he would wake up, speaking evolved languages, like the way that our English is so far removed from Shakespeare's English. When they finally visit him, he has been horrendously altered physically by his lifetimes in these dreams, and is unable to distinguish the events from dreams from reality. I have to give massive credit here to the costume and prop people for his appearance. They really tried to make it look like Ito's art come to life, and I think that they nailed it. He is so disturbing to look at, and I really do appreciate the amount of time and effort that had to have gone into this. The movie takes another moment to diverge into its own plot about Kuroda's dreams and a girl he once knew. When Makoto goes to see Takashima under the delusion that they are married and in love, she again reacts in fear, calling him the spirit of death, which seems to shake him from his delusion. Another interjection of the film is Kuroda has a dream about being with Kana again, and shows that he seems to be clinging to memories of someone who he once knew and is no longer around. This will become more important to the movie as it goes on, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It's really kind of meaningless. Kuroda goes to see Makoto once again to find that he seems to have evolved again, and begins to wonder what will happen when Makoto's dream becomes so long that they become endless and eternal. We have more of this fucking Kana subplot. It becomes such a fucking constant thing at this point that it's irritating, and me and the missus even started to joke that because all of these flashbacks happen in the same alleyway, we found the idea that the doctor and Kana once went on one date, or he saw her at a distance once in that alley and has just become obsessed with her. When Kuroda wakes up, he finds that Mukura has begun to crumble away, leaving into his eternal dream and leaving only an unusual red jewel-like substance in his wake. This effect isn't super great to see. While they usually do pretty well with practical effects, Japan's CGI work has always left a lot to be desired. Mami begins to experience streams of increasing length after Mukura's passing, even showing some of the signs that Mukura did early on. And here is where the manga and the movie split almost entirely. In the manga, the doctor admits that he's been injecting Mami with the remains of Mukura in order to give her long dreams. And remember, in the manga, he doesn't have this weird kind of dead girl thing going on. So he does it as a treatment for her fear of death. If she can achieve the eternal dream, then she'll have nothing to fear from death. And the manga ends with a proposal of the question, this is a right thing to do. The movie, however, as my favorite one-handed, one-eyed book reviewer would say,
now, stay with me here, because the plan gets a little convoluted and a lot crazy.
Kuroda hides the fact that he's been treating her with the remains, and her situation worsens exponentially faster than Mukura's did. A nurse catches him in the act and attempts to snitch like a punk, but is seen by Mami, who proceeds to murder the nurse in the bathroom, under the delusion that she and Kuroda has been in love for 10 years, her last long dream. The hospital does its best to cover it up, and this weird moment happens. I still don't know what the fuck this is. Kuroda then drops and breaks a piece of the remains and seems to panic, which motivates the other doctor to investigate into Kuroda, where he finds out that Kana had a tumor that was worsening and had actually been engaged to Kuroda. Upon learning of her worsening state, she was presumably euthanized by Kuroda in order to escape her suffering. Yamauchi, the other doctor whose name I've never said for some reason, finally learns that Kuroda has been testing the remains on Mami, and the philosophical question at the end of the manga is posited in the movie. It's just immediately disregarded as Kuroda reveals that he's also begun using the remains to give himself long dreams so that he could be with Kana. But instead, he's actually lost the ability to dream entirely. Yamauchi monologues about the poetic irony of this situation, his loss, and I actually rolled my eyes as this was happening because I thought they were really gonna end here. This was how this whole movie was gonna end. I was pleasantly surprised when Kuroda proceeds to beat Yamauchi to death with a nearby ashtray. It's a scene that's weirdly reminiscent of Kyo. Kuroda turns in horror to find that his murder has been recorded by a collection of cameras, before showing that Kuroda himself was a patient who suffered from long dreams. Yamauchi sits with Makoto, Mami, and that one nurse who was killed in the bathroom, all revealed to be hospital staff, alive and well, who are observing Kuroda as he suffers from long dreams. So, in the end, it was all his own long dream. None of the events happened, which is a neat kind of twist in a way, but the main question I found myself confronted with, did this story need a twist? And honestly, I still don't know the answer. On the one hand, I find myself perturbed by the lack of ending in the original manga, but I understand that that may have been the point. It doesn't want to handhold or try to talk down to the readers, instead leaving it to them to find their own beliefs on the morality of this situation, which is a great thing that horror movies can do really well and very rarely explore. But I can see why, if you're making a single shot short movie, you maybe don't want to leave such an open ending. But at the same time, on the other hand, was anything gained by the introduction of this side story in the ending? Not really. The doctor is entirely monstrous, using Mami and the treatment as a way to further his own selfish desires. And even then, since it's all revealed to be a dream at the end, it didn't matter. I think the pacing and the moral quandary of the story is bogged down too much by this edition, and I think I'd rather they had left it out. Its attempts to be faithful visually to the source material is amazing, and they did an incredible job of it. But in the places that they diverged from the story, they lost themselves. And it's too bad because they came real close to hitting solid gold. This movie, by the way, was made by the same guy who made the adaptation of Uzumaki that started this whole debacle. So I guess in a way we really have come full circle with this. I know I said that this was the penultimate video in this series, and it is. I fully intend and I'm working on looking into one more Junji Ito related project, but the project I'm working on now is a big beast in both forms, and it's going to take a bit to get taken care of. So for now, the Junji Ito adaptation debate, for me at least, sits at adaptations 2, originals 2. Could the next series of movies resolve this? Maybe, but maybe I should wait for the Adult Swim Uzumaki series and really bring this full thing closed circle, you know? That was rhetorical, by the way. I've learned my lesson about asking you all stuff. I know that for a lot of you, this is where we'll say goodbye. I intend to talk more about a lot of things. Some Japanese horror, some other foreign horror, some non-horror, maybe some games, maybe some TV shows. Whatever I find interesting and I can talk about, I will. But I know that some of you aren't interested in that. You're here because Junji Ito's name was on the tag. And I mean, screw like, comment, and subscribing, alright? To those of you who will get off the train here, to those of you who will get off for a bit and then come back once the Uzumaki series started, and to those who will stick with me as I try to figure out what it is that I'm doing here, just remember, you're all still friends to me.
We got place to go, things to do, people to see, and we gotta get it done right away.
That being said, y'all didn't really help with the question at the end of the Gyo video, so the videos that come out next month, that's on you. Good night.
You and the crew, yes, be a team.